We have an interesting episode this week. It's going to step outside of the paranormal, and we're going to kind of dive into more of a realistic approach. It's basically about someone who has went through a lot in their life, and it's basically a focus on their particular reality. But I think it's a very good story that we need to share, and it's gonna. I think it can give a lot of hope and just spread a positive message, is what I'm looking for. And without further ado, we have the author of The Prescription is in the Dirt. It's basically a life story. I believe it offers hope in overcoming hardships in life. It was an inspirational story to me. It was about perseverance, staying grounded in your spirituality. She's a singer and a writer. I'd like to welcome Fatima Oliver to the show. How you doing, Fatima?
Good, thank you, Dylan. You doing that singer part, huh?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. We're going to get into a little bit of that too, because
Yeah.
I don't, you didn't really touch on it a whole lot in the book, but
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I
yeah.
did. I think just because I'm learning to get back engaged in that space, and I shared in the book the reasons why I had got disengaged, but I'm
Hmm.
starting a new space in that area, and just really learning to enjoy that gift again.
Right. And I really just appreciate, the honesty and just how you just came forward with, basically, I guess, in so many words, kind of a short version of your life story, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a lot shared in there, but you're right. It's so much, we live through so much, and trying to remember every single detail of a situation, sometimes it's just so hard. When I was writing the book, I had to relive it, you know, and so later after I write the book, I was like, dang, I should have told that part. I should have told that part, because there's just so many things that when you're living something, you may not pay attention to, or it's just so much that you don't remember everything. And then later on, as how memory works, it just starts to slowly give you the parts, piece by piece. And so there are some things that you leave out, just like you were saying, the singing. I didn't talk that much about it, but I did that for a good amount of my life. And yeah, it's just sometimes I wish that I would have remembered some things, but in gist, I hope that it serves its purpose. And I definitely did my best to give detail, um eh, without going overboard, and trying to not just stay solely on the negative aspects of some of the events. But yeah.
No, and when I was reading your book, I mean, I'm a person who has been through a lot of hardships and I've had some tragedy in my life. But I mean, after reading your story, I was just like, wow, I don't think I had it that rough, man. I really don't. I just got to commend you on just kind of where you're at today with what you've went through. And it seems like, you've, I don't know, maybe blossomed from the situation.
Yeah, I think we all do though, and I think pain is relative, right? Because when I was going through stuff, I would say the same thing you said. Well, somebody else has it harder than me, right? And somehow that gives us justification to not feel the emotion or feel like life is crap. And when in actuality, life is crap. You know what I'm saying? But somehow we tell ourselves that we don't have it as bad as somebody else, so we should be stronger. And I just think that's a disservice to the pain that we're experiencing. And so it's relative. We know that there are other people out there. I mean, have you ever had your parents say, my mom used to always say this. I probably said it once or twice to my kids, but I try to not say it. Um, it's when you give them the food and they don't want to eat it, and you say, well, people in Africa, they don't have any food. Okay.
Right.
My mom used to say that all the time. And so I know I've said that to my children a time or two. But that ain't got nothing to do with the fact that I don't like this food, right? I mean, you understand that there are people in life who definitely have it worse than you, but that doesn't mean that what you're experiencing isn't valuable, like isn't valid. And so yeah, so I definitely think that my life when I was going through it. I'm sure, just like you, sometimes you think it's just normal. Dysfunction becomes normal, you know. So a lot of the things that I went through, I didn't look at it as a lot. I just looked at it as, okay, got to get over that. Okay, got to get over that. And now, as an adult with my own children, and had to go back and revisit those moments to deal with the emotional aspect of it that was tearing me apart internally. That's when I really got to see just how much it was, because the emotion of it, when I started going through, peeling back the layers on different events and the emotion that I would experience, it was so overwhelming and exhausting. That's how I knew, yeah, I did go through a lot. But up until that point, it just was my life, you know. And a lot of times now, even when I hear people and their sentiments towards the book, I'm so grateful that it's being received in that way. It's just I'm still in that space of, it was just my life, you know, and sometimes life can really suck.
What was your goal for writing the book? I mean, what were you setting out to accomplish with sharing your story?
Honestly, I was in this program called Celebrate Recovery. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's similar to a Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous as far as the foundationals, the 12-step type of
Yeah, I
program.
think you talk about it on your book a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so in there, at least for your listeners, the foundation of the program are biblical principles. And so my faith, I'm a Christian, and so my faith is very important to me. And so that program was offered with my church that I'm affiliated with. And so in going through the process, it was like a step-by-step program. Took about 9 months to finish. And then after that, after you do the step by step, the books, then you can continue to go to different meetings like anybody does with the program. And I actually just got my 1 year chip, which was awesome to me last week. But anyway, when I after you're done with the program, you're encouraged to write your, it's called a testimony. You basically write your story, write about how deep down, where all this started from. Where were you? You know, what made you, what was your rock bottom? And then what made you come to the program? And so I wrote it out. And then they also ask you, what have you gained from going through the program? So I pretty much wrote all of that out. And when I read it back to myself, I said, well, dang, that's a book. I mean, dang. And that was really the foundation of how it was created for me anyway. I feel like it was kind of like I tripped into the blessing. I do believe that God always sees all and he knows all. And he saw it in my, you know, in my future. You know, that was a part of my calling. That was a part of my steps that I was supposed, my destiny, as we can say. But for me, I had no clue. And so when I wrote the book, one of the key things when I was writing it is I noticed that it was definitely an extension of therapy for me. And it was an extension of healing. And I wanted to make sure that although I'm getting fed from writing it, I wanted to make sure that I stood up for those people who haven't found their voice yet. And just for them to, you know, at least know that they're not by themselves, that somebody else has gone through pain similar to theirs, and that they're not alone, and that they matter. Their voice matters. My voice mattered at a young age when people weren't listening to me. And my voice matters now, and so does theirs. And so that was the critical thing I wanted to make sure was received from the book.
That's an excellent point. And I think, believe it or not, as I was reading your book, I was thinking to myself, like, um, wow, all these things that you're going through, it's almost as if, they were kind of meant to happen to you, maybe to write this book. And now you've got some self-help stuff that maybe we're going to touch on at the end of the show. But it just seems like that is kind of like was kind of your destiny, or kind of, you kind of had to go through that probably for many reasons. You had to experience some of the things you experienced, but one of them was the book, right?
Yeah,
It's yeah,
absolutely. And I,
it's
I really
impressive.
think that, yeah, go ahead.
I
Thank
was
you. I
just
mean, I
gonna
really
say
think
too.
that, hey,
Go ahead.
yeah.
No, for our
No, go ahead.
listeners that you didn't come from a traditional Christian background either. You found your faith later on, correct?
Yeah, so yeah, for me, I was a Buddhist, and I grew up very centered in what's considered the Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism philosophy. In their view, they're the one true Buddhism, and my grandmother was a Buddhist. I have uncles, aunts. It was just a part of our lineage, and so I was a Buddhist, shoot, from as far back as I can recall. I've chanted and done the prayers and been a part of this Asian religion. And I was actually one of the first people to branch out from my family to become a Christian, which was kind of scary because number one, I had no idea of what it was about, but I was intrigued. And number two, it was just comfort in knowing that I was a part of a legacy. And so and it wasn't and it was shunned upon when I decided to become a walk in the Christian faith. And there's some background that I share in the book of one of the reasons why, but I was definitely looked at as being in a cult. And it probably took a couple years, probably 2 3 years, before me and my family could kind of meet, meet and have a civil conversation about different beliefs, and it didn't end in an argument, or it didn't end in one person feeling less than the other person. So it really took some effort on both our parts to be able to just say we don't have the same religion. Okay, we don't do everything the same way, but ultimately, you're seeking out goodness, I'm seeking out goodness. Let's just meet there. Let's try to meet in the middle somewhere. And so I'm grateful that we were able to do that. But yeah, I didn't become a Christian until I was 19. I was a Buddhist from a babe all the way up till 19 years old.
And that's kind of part of your journey too, right? And it actually started
Absolutely.
at an early age. You had your like feet and legs burned real bad. Was it?
Yeah, yeah. At around 2 years old, 1 2 years old, I there was an accident. It was a water heater that was broken, and it caused only hot water to come out into the tub. And my brother was actually helping to make the water, bath water, and it was scalding hot water, and I got put into the water, and it burned me on basically the half of my body, 25% burned on my legs, and my feet are completely burnt. And um and so yeah, at that age, 2 years old, you can barely talk anyway at that age, but I had to learn how to eat, walk, and talk all over again. And I don't remember it, which I think that's just how strong the brain is. It stops you from being able to remember trauma. And again, that's also why we have repressed memories too. But I don't remember it, but just the stories from my family, sharing the consistency in the stories about how I got burnt. And it definitely caused some insecurity. It
Mm.
caused a lot of just, self consciousness about what I looked like. I lived in pants and in tights, even as a young adult. I was scared to show my feet. And Lord Jesus, talking about the dating, trying to date, it's like you're trying to figure out how many dates in do you go before you tell them that you have a deformity, because they're not seeing it. You got on jeans and boots, and that was always scary for me, of trying to figure out the right time to tell somebody that I had burns. And I really believe it was because of that insecurity, which and a host of other insecurities, is why when my first boyfriend, my first true love, my what is it, my high school sweetheart, when he accepted me just like I was, I just latched on. You talk about a needy girlfriend. I was definitely a needy girlfriend. I never had anybody to say that I was beautiful and I had burns. The only other person that would tell me that was my mom. So for a guy to look at me and seemingly see me and not my scars was huge for me. And it cemented such great loyalty, through the remainder of our relationship. It cemented this loyalty and this attachment, probably codependency, that I just couldn't let go of, because I was afraid that nobody would date me with my burns.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that in the story, maybe some codependency.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
maybe even a little bit. Do you think it ties in any to maybe a little bit of the abuse that happened when you were younger?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the reality is, shoot, around at least around 5 years old, I recall my mom getting abused, and then me watching her in the corner getting beat up by her significant other, and then me and my older brother getting tied up and beat by my stepfather, and along sexual abuse was there, and the emotional torment, and just seeing that, you kind of get in your head. I don't know how anybody can't get in their head that a piece of that is normal when that's what you're used to. Until you get a slice of something different, you view that as normalcy. And so when I was with my boyfriend, who later turned out to be my husband, and he started putting his hands on me and dragging me all around the house. And I mean, Dylan, my good weave. Do you hear me? Do you understand how much wigs and weaves cost? That's a lot of money. He dragged me around my good weave.
What?
I can joke about it now, but it was no joking matter,
Right.
and just making up in my mind that I was gonna stay, and I really believe that it had to do with that I felt like if I left him, nobody else would love me. I couldn't fathom anybody else wanting me. It just wasn't even an option for me. And I had known him since I was in high school. So it's just that mind game that happens is so serious. I heard an older woman say, if a man makes love to your mind, he's got you. He's got your entire body. He's got you, period. And I just really feel like, he had my mind so wrapped that my body just followed. And I stayed in that relationship for, we were together 12 years. And we were married 9. I got married the day after my 21st birthday. I had no clue that I was leaving, running away from craziness right into craziness. I had no idea I was going from crazy to crazy, and that's unfortunate. But it's even more unfortunate that I didn't have enough love for myself, or belief in myself, or confidence in my God,
Right.
that I could do better. And I decided, and I wanted to make that clear in the book, that I understand that I chose it because of my work thinking, but yet I still chose. And I chose to stay because of my mindset and because of my lack of work that I felt within myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I picked up on that too. Like when, you were talking about how he was engaged to you, but still married, and you didn't even know it at the time. And as I'm reading the book, I'm thinking to myself, run, run, go, get away from him. This ain't going to
Yeah.
turn out good. This ain't going
Right.
to,
Right. Yeah, man.
yeah.
I mean, now you can see it, but right, isn't that crazy? I could have
Mhm.
melted. I could have melted. I was in front of my pastor and his wife, and we were in pre-counseling before you marry, and I had no idea up until that moment, and it was just, I was mortified. But even in that, I would have felt even more mortified if we wouldn't have gotten married. I mean, it was just, I was so hung up on the dream. I was so hung up on this fantasy that somehow in my head, I thought if we married, everything else would work out, which was the farthest from the truth. If anything, it just made him feel ownership over me. And I allowed it, and so that's the part that I can never take back. And I just look at it as a learning lesson, and one of those things that I can pick up now with other with younger people and their relationships, and just trying to guide them as much as I can, because it never turns out good when you make a decision like that. When it's already crazy, you're not going to marry the crazy away. It's going to still be crazy. And unfortunately I learned that the hard way. Um and I told people, I told a couple people, and the people that I told never told me to leave. And in my heart, I wanted to hear somebody older, somebody more mature, somebody with experience, life experience more anyway, tell me, Fatima, you need to leave. And nobody ever told me. And so after telling about 3 people and nobody ever said the words, you need to leave, I just stopped telling people, and I just took it as, this is my life. And that rolled me out 9 years. I would say really 6 years, until I started saying, I'm tired of this, but now what do I do? I'm tired of it, but now how do I leave? And it really took, I would say, about a good 3 years, and a girlfriend who, for the first time, challenged me in my thinking. That challenged me to make the tough call to leave him, knowing that I had a son and I would be basically becoming a single mother, making the decision that my son didn't need to see us in that way anymore, that he deserved better. And it was because of that that I decided to leave. And I didn't leave and go to a plush hotel. I left and went and stayed on my cousin's couch. I moved in with my cousin, and me and my son slept on her couch, me on one end, him on the other end, right? And sometimes that's the way it is. It's about how much you are desperate to change your life, versus what it looks like, versus what people would think of you. You have to determine, is your desperation worth more than what people may say about you? And I guess by then, at that time, I had gotten to that place where my desperation was more important.
But I think ultimately, you made some wise decisions when it came to allowing your son to have a relationship with him. There's a wonderful thing you have in your book I want to mention real quick, and then I kind of want you to touch on.
Yeah.
You had said that I am so grateful my son had the time to get to know his father for himself, to develop a relationship independent from mine. I thought that you said, although let's see here, although my life with Alan was dramatically different from my son's experience, it does not mean that one experience was truer than the other. I thought
Yeah.
that was very well said and beautifully put.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and that takes a really big person to to do that and be able to say that, going based
Yeah.
on what you went through with that guy.
And it was tough, though. You read the nice part, Dylan. You didn't read the couple pages back. It's the process, right? So we really, when I left him, but the mind games didn't stop. The mental, the mental control, it didn't stop. The anxiety that I felt when I got around him didn't stop. It didn't stop for years, and I had to put safety barriers around myself and between us, because he still very much had control over me, even though we were not living together. And he would play games, and I got tired of the games. And eventually I got wise enough to put some barriers in between our communicating. And so and after so long, I even had to block his calls and just decide that I was going to just raise my son solo, because it was very, I was scared of him. Like, it's crazy to say that I wasn't even living with him, but it was, I don't even necessarily want to say, I guess I was scared of him. I was scared of how much he controlled me. I was scared that he could make my emotions just go all over the place in a drop of a hat, and that I would lose control of myself. And I was working to gain control of me. But whenever I was around him, he just had a way of just taking me everywhere, in this emotional roller coaster whenever we talked. So I went plenty of years just saying, you know what, I'm cutting all the conversation off. I'm just cutting it off. He's no good for me. And if he's no good for me, how could he possibly be any good for my son? But after so long, when my son got to around middle age, he really started acting out. And by then I had married, and although my husband was trying to be the best that he could be as a stepfather, and my son had a relationship with his biological father. He knew that relationship, and he felt void. He felt a void. He felt he felt, I guess, kind of like left behind a little bit. And I guess at one point God just had to show me that, it's if is it, is it about me or is it about my child? And I had to come to terms with, my child needs this. And as hard as that was, to bow down to the fact that my son needed his father after I had been through all this stuff with his dad, my pride had to drop. And that was hard, because I took pride in being able to raise my son without any assistance from his dad. I didn't
Right.
have to deal with the mental craziness. I was doing this on my own. And so having to make that call, to reach out to him and say, your son needs you, he needs to come live with you, was very humbling. And in that moment, he wasn't, he treated me with respect. and there was some, a civil conversation there, and I wasn't bashed. And it made me think about this saying that I heard ages ago. I don't know how old you are, but back in the day there was Montel Williams show.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and on the on the Montel Williams show, there was a couple, and they were talking about at some age where the son needs to go and stay with the father, and the woman and the son was mad, I guess, that he was told to go stay with his dad, and the mother said, I had to let I'd had to let the better parent be the parent. And so in that instance in my life, it didn't take away anything I had done for him. I had done good by him. He just didn't want to receive it anymore. At that time, the better parent was my ex-husband, because that's who he wanted to be with, because that's who he would have received direction from.
Right, right.
Now, do I think he could have parented better than me? No, but that's who my son would have listened to,
Right.
right? And so that was definitely a humbling moment, but I definitely think that it was the best decision. And he got to know his dad. He got to know the good parts, the bad parts, the crazy parts. He got to know his father. And so his father wound up passing away. He actually died of COVID
Wow.
in September. Yeah, he actually died in
Wow.
September of COVID. And in that moment, I was just so grateful that I made that decision, because I know that my son doesn't have to wonder who his dad was and what his dad looked like and what his dad's favorite foods were. He doesn't have to worry what his dad's favorite football team was. He knows these things. He knew his father, and he can find some comfort in the fact that he truly had a relationship with his dad. But I had to move out the way for that to happen.
Well said. Now your background is in business administration.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you take any psychology courses or
No, no, not at all. I think I'm just and project management. I actually just got my master's, Dylan. I'm proud of that.
congratulations?
Thank you.
It's a tough thing.
It is a tough thing, and I finished my class like the day before my birthday, so I already had my cap and gown. So I put my cap and gown on, and I celebrated my birthday and my graduation on the same day. And if you look on my Instagram, you will see I went through Walmart in my outfit and everything.
That's awesome.
But yeah, but no, I never took any. You know what? Real talk, Dylan. We don't need to take a lot of psychology classes if you haven't been through enough stuff. You know how to read somebody. You
That's
know what I
valid.
mean?
That's valid.
You know how to read. You know when people are full of it.
You live the psychology courses.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think in that you learn life. Your sometimes the greatest teaching is through life experiences, and I can definitely say that whether it was some wonderful moments or some painful moments, I definitely learned a lot. And I'm one of those people that believe in I win or I learn. There is no in between. And so even when I'm going through something horrible, there's got to be something that I can learn. There's got to be something, like there's got to be a way to turn this into purpose.
Yeah, there's
There's
definitely
gotta,
lessons.
there's got to be something. And so that's truly what I strive to find.
That's well said, and I think that everybody, should try to live their life that way. Because I mean, you could just as easily, with everything that you've been through, went down a whole different path, a whole different direction, if
Yeah.
you weren't taking this stuff, internalizing it, and just learning from it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you seem very well grounded, and just definitely, I think, your spirituality probably plays a
Yeah.
large role in that too as well,
For
correct?
sure. For sure. I mean, I got to be honest, like from a babe, I was focused on spirituality. It may not have been Christianity, but I was still focused leaning towards the spiritual curve, just because of how I grew up. And so I already had some practices instilled in me, just as far as inspiration wise. And then and just for me, falling in love with God, or falling in love with Jesus Christ, I really did. He was like my confidant. And everybody, believes whatever they believe, but I think there's something to be said about being spiritual, because sometimes that's where you look to for your guidance. And so for me, I looked a lot to God for guidance. So even when I felt like he was nowhere to be found, even when I felt like I can't possibly be on his radar because I'm not important enough, that was farthest from the truth, but I didn't know, and I felt that. But even in the midst of that, I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I would normally talk to God. Like when I would, instead of saying I was talking to myself, I would just say I'm talking to God. And so I had a lot of conversations, a lot of crying sessions, a lot of plotting sessions with God. And then even though I didn't think he was listening to me, go figure, he was. And opportunities began to knock on my door to help me to gain confidence in Fatima, enough confidence to say, you know what, I could possibly leave this situation. I could possibly leave and be okay. And so I began to things began to work for me, to where in the beginning of my relationship with my ex-husband, I wasn't working. And I was a stay-at-home mom because my son at the time was born 3 months premature, and he had a lot of difficulty. And so I stayed home for 2 years, and I had nothing. That's how I felt. And then because I was blessed to have the gift to sing, I was able to get opportunities to sing. And it was through those opportunities and making friendships that I was able to, get a gig that would last me 4 to 5 years. Singing on the road every couple weeks out of a month, would sing on the road. And it really opened up the door for me to be able to save some money, to get some confidence, to see that I really am a cool person. This person is just crazy at my house, but other people think I'm nice. And just really being able to get some perspective. And so I think nobody could have done that but God. And that's just my belief. As far as aligning the stars, if you want to say, aligning things out to where somebody met me 1 or 2 times and then I didn't see them again for a year. But when they prayed for somebody to take their spot because they couldn't do the gig, my name went across their head. We hadn't even talked. So for me, those are things that happened that I can't say it was nobody but God. And so that's how I got the opportunity to sing on the road with the Righteous Brothers.
That's well said. And I think that I don't know if it's what's wrong with the world today, but I do think there's a lack of focus in spirituality, and I think humans have a hard time at taking on everything for themselves.
Yeah.
I think you need that guidance that you're talking about. It goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not meant to carry it. We're not meant to carry everything alone. And we're definitely not meant to do life alone. And for me, I grew up a loner. I was the only girl out of all boys. There were five, I have 5 brothers, or I had 5 brothers, and I was the only girl. So we already started out on the wrong page. We did not understand each other. I was more emotional, and they laughed when I was emotional, and emotions wasn't really allowed in my family just because my mama didn't have time for that. She was a single mom, and she was trying to raise these boys with this girl, and she just didn't have time to coddle me. And although I understand that it was cruel at the time because I didn't have anybody to really lean on, and so I internalized a lot, and I didn't know how to make friends really. And so I most of my life has been kind of isolated, and I learned to internalize a lot. But God didn't intend for us to do life alone. He had community. Jesus had community, and he didn't need community, but he had disciples. He had community. And so we are all meant to have some type of tribe, some type of brotherly bond, sisterly bond, some people in our view, and that we can really rely on to be there. Some people call them ride or dies. Some people call them, my ace boon coons or my tribe, whatever you call them. We all need that. We all need that safe place to where when we're really going through and we having some dark thoughts in our minds, that we have somebody that we can speak to who won't judge those dark thoughts but help us walk away from them. And I had to find that. I had to learn that. And I'm very grateful that I did, because it helped me to still be here. There are plenty of times where I've thought about taking my life because I've had some very dark times. And I'm just so grateful that I had my sister friends. I call them sister friends. I had them to talk to me and help me and give me the courage to walk through the door of to a therapist's office and get therapy, and just start diving into all of these events that had happened over my life over a course of 40 something years and deal with the emotional part of surviving it all.
Wow.
It's a
It's
lot, huh?
good. It's good. What would you tell those that have maybe lost their faith or kind of lost their way or are not in touch with their faith?
That's a tough one. So I definitely have been there. I think what I could share is when I was at my worst, faith wise, I really felt, um, I don't know if I should say self righteous, but a angry. I needed a, I like I needed an explanation from God, and I was really angry, and that was, I would say more so when I lost my child. And I was angry because at the time I was so in the church, I really didn't understand that much about the fact that just because you go to church doesn't mean that life stops, that you just have some place to lean on when life continues to go. I didn't really understand that. And so I was very angry, but I realized that me going to God in my anger and expressing my anger to God made me closer to Him. It didn't make me farther away from Him, it made me closer to Him. And God is a God of everything. He's not afraid of our anger. He's not afraid of our so-called rebuke. I think it's okay to express that because just like my godfather told me, he knows it anyway. So you might as well say it. It's the not saying that can get you in trouble. It's the not speaking on what's on your heart that can lead you farther and farther away from your faith. I think it's very important to get it out, whether it's journaling it, whether it's writing it out and then burning it, whatever you got to do, whether it's sitting prostrate before God or on your knees beside your bed and screaming up to God, because I've totally done that a couple times. But even in the midst of me doing that, not only did I feel closer to God, but I also felt that I also was reminded that God is God. So the reality of life is that not everything we understand. That's just the reality. There will always be mysteries when it comes to this earth and to us living on this earth. But if we can breathe in and breathe out every day, and we can get up out the bed and put our clothes on and go to work, or spend time with our children, I personally think that that's God and work in us. And so I think just if for no other reason, we should thank Him for that. And I think it's okay to come to set an altar for yourself, come to your bedside, or just have that moment with God and express how you really feel, because He knows it anyway. And by expressing it and getting it out honestly, it doesn't make you farther away. It brings you closer to Him, and it gives Him an opportunity to heal what has been broken. And so honestly, I think that's what I would say, is that life is full of surprises, whether I love God or not. And I was just like many who thought that I could be a Christian and not go through anything, and then life hit me upside the head, and I was like, hey, this wasn't a part of the deal. But the reality is, life is life, and sometimes there are wonderful things, sometimes there are horrible things, sometimes there are tragic and remorseful things that happen, and sometimes we're the ones that's doing the damage. But in the midst of all of it, God is still there, and all we have to do is just give Him a chance.
Well said. Um, what do you think happens in the afterlife? Where do we go from here?
Yeesh. Ugh. Well, honestly, I think that we are first held accountable for which we understand. And I think that determines based on your age, right? So if my kid is 3 and he knows to not take the cookies in the cookie jar and he takes one, he's held accountable for which he understands. So in that, I do believe, probably not popular, but I do believe there's a heaven, and I do believe that there's a hell. I believe the Bible. And so in that, I can't have one part of it and then negate the other part of it. And I think that's where my faith has to come in. The parts that I don't understand, the parts that I'm like, but for real, is that really there? I have to stand on my faith, and either I believe it or I don't. And so for me, I believe the whole Bible. And but in saying that, I also believe that Jesus came to not hang out with the saved, the upright folks. He came and hung out with the sinners. He came and hung out with the tax collectors, right? And he had compassion. and he was non-judgmental. And I believe that no matter what type of rule is in the Bible, what type of bylaw, if you want to say, is in the Bible that we live by, we must first live by love. We must first live by compassion. And for me, when I live my life, that is what I try to go before me, put before me, is compassion and empathy and love. Because no matter what else I know, ain't nobody trying to hear none of that if they're not feeling that from me. And I'm not trying to hear from anybody. And I just don't believe that God is that type of God. So how I do believe in heaven and hell. I do believe in the Old Testament, but I definitely believe in the New Testament, where God came and shed his blood so that we could be saved, and so that no matter how we screw up, because we always do, no matter how we screw up, that he
Yes, we
still
do.
loves us, that he still loves us. So
That's great. What are some of your future plans?
so my future plans, I'm definitely in the process, very much in the early stage of another book. I haven't even started typing it down yet. I'm doing a lot of journaling. um
What's it about?
I don't want to tell you that.
Hey, that's fine if you don't want to share it.
No,
I'm
I'll tell a little
curious.
bit. No, so in this book, right? So just so your listeners would have an idea. So in this book, I talk a lot about pain. I talk a lot about trauma and just climbing through that and finding my identity. I talk about the fact that how me and Dylan shared about me having burns and having to learn how to live with that, and the sexual and emotional and mental and all this stuff about how I was a victim, right? And it happened, and I really was. But I also talk about not having my identity, and trying to find it. And so you go through that journey with me in the book. And so the new book will really be about how interesting it can be once you get healed from those huge things, and how you begin to really see yourself. It's hard to see yourself when somebody's dragging you around the floor. Everybody know that the guy that's dragging you around is wrong, right? But not to say that I provoked anything, but if I have a habit of starting mess, if I have a habit of being instigative, if I have a habit of being bitter and angry, it's hard to see that when somebody's dragging you around. So my point is that taking me out of that. What did I do after I left? How did I get to a place where God has me now, where he's showing me those little things that in the beginning was not important enough to even deal with, because I had too much other stuff. But now that I'm healed from a lot of traumatic situations, the things that he's showing me now about maybe being a place of peace for my husband, working on being a place where he can find peace and not frustrate him and think it's cute, just things like that we normally don't. We say, oh, that's just a part of my personality. Well, the book is going to kind of go through those things that I've experienced, and how basically God has checked me. But there's also some stories of my past that I didn't share that I'll definitely be diving in this one too.
Excellent. You're gonna have to come back on the show when you release the book.
I would love to. I would love to. Yes, for sure.
Excellent. So I guess next question is, you know, you already answered. You're going to continue to write, so that's great. Because I was going to tell you that
Yeah.
I was going to at least encourage you to continue to do that, because I think you did a great job
Thank
on
you.
the book, and it was just well written. I read it in like a day and a half. I mean, it's an easy read. You sit down and it's a page turner.
Thank
But
you.
where can we, find the work that you're doing? And can you talk a little bit about, the thing that you had touched on prior to us starting to record, where
Yeah.
you like kind of meet with people one on one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on my website, I have a website. It's www.fatimac.com. Fatima C, not O, because the C is my middle name, but I'm not telling you what it is. Fatimac.com. But on there, you will find, of course, a way to purchase the book. You will also find, when you first go to the website, a couch with a tea kettle, and it looks so inviting in the living room like you're sitting down and having a conversation. And I really wanted to um, set that setting because that's what I'm about. I'm an author and a conversationalist. And so I want to be there for people in the best way that I know how. To me, this is my ministry. And so I've offered a space called a safe space session. And what that means is I'm a strong believer, I hinted on it earlier, is that everybody needs a safe place to fall. But not everybody has one. Not everybody can even figure out right now who that person would be for them. Sometimes that may have to be a therapist if it can't be a relative. But in the process of you trying to figure that out, my goal is to be there for you. So if there's anything that you need to get off your chest, if there is anything that you feel that you've been tussling with, that you feel like God is trying to bring up out of you, some things, some triggers that are happening, and you're trying to figure out the root of it, or just what if it's an exciting moment, but you don't even feel like you have anybody to share that excitement with, please let me be there for you. I offer a 20-minute session. You come on, we set the date, and basically you talk and I listen. I don't offer advice. I think there is something to be said about being heard. It's a girlfriend's corner. So if you want my advice, just understand it's going to be your girlfriend giving it. Straight shooter, no chase. So only if you ask for it. Outside of that, I really am there to listen, and I'll even offer prayer if you would like it. But trust me, that is not a mandatory thing. I just want to be there for you, just like somebody was there for me. And so if you're interested, you can come to fatimac.com, look up appointments, and find the safe place session, and then just book it with me, and we'll set up the time and make sure it works for both of us. Outside of that, I'm on Facebook as Fatima Oliver, LinkedIn, Fatima Oliver, and Instagram, Fatima C. Oliver. I feel like I missed one. Reddit too. I'm on Reddit too. Yeah, so
I'll put
you're
the links in
definitely
the show
available.
notes too.
Thank you. Yeah, you're definitely able to find me.
Excellent. And the book, as far as the book, you can get that on Amazon and also, and just
Yeah. Yes, yes, for sure. So you can purchase the book if you went to my website. It's gonna pop up. It's gonna just like stalk you and be like, "Get my book, get my book." But if you like and you want to go to Amazon, absolutely. The book is on Amazon. It's reasonably priced. It has some pretty awesome reviews. I'm very grateful for the reviews. And I gotta tell you, I don't know that many people that would lie for me. So these are real reviews, okay? All right. So I just don't know that many people that would lie in this way for me. But yeah, I really believe that there is a seed of healing that's planted inside the book, or at least inspiration,
yes.
encouragement. And so I really encourage those that are listening. Support your girl, support your sister. I'm your sister now. Support me, and pick up the book. You can get it in ebook, digital copy, or you can get it in paperback.
Yes, pick the book up. Excellent read. A, it's been a fascinating discussion, and we definitely want to have you as a return guest. So,
Yes.
hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you so much. And for sure, I'll come on. You let me know when I'm there.
Thank you.